I don't think Canadian miners have any specific advantage over like miners from the US.
The attributes that Bitcoin has that allows for such a fundamental upgrade in that.
Everything is in Bitcoin.
We're just to the stage of they'd be like, what are you talking about? You're crazy.
I'm the real Al's Lacrosse.
And I think it's going to happen faster because of the network effects on Bitcoin.
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Stewart here with ShirdBits, along with a colleague of mine, an engineer at ShirdBits, Ben Carman, and we're here today to present to y'all about discrete log contracts. Discrete log contracts are a cool new application built on top of Bitcoin. Recently, there's been some buzz around them. We've been working on them for quite some time now, and we're ready for them to become mainstream. So we're gonna walk through a few examples of discrete log contracts, how they work. Ben and another colleague of mine at ShirdBits, Nadav Cohen, had previously presented about discrete log contracts, and since then, we've had these concrete developments. Ben, is there anything that you wanted to add before we get started here?
Yeah, just make sure to check out. We're not going to go exactly into exact specification of how they work, so I'd recommend checking out our previous Tech Tuesday about them, and you can really get more inside look of how they work and development going on there. But today we'll talk about more why they're cool and a lot of things we've learned while working on them.
Well, cool. Let's jump in here, and our talk today is titled DLCs in the Wild: How the One BTC Election Bet Was Made. So now we have one of the first kind of seminal moments in discrete log contracts where serious money is being put into them, and an outcome, this contract will be settled. So first off, how did this whole situation start? Why do we have a one Bitcoin bet on discrete log contracts? So this all started from pretty prolific Bitcoin developer Nicholas Dorier tweeting out in August saying that I want to bet that I want to bet on Trump's victory, putting money where my mouth is. But bet tokens are denominated in United States dollars. Looking at the odds for the betting markets right now, it says there's a 40% chance that Trump wins, but I believe that Bitcoin can moon until then. So even if I win, I lose BTC. So, he doesn't want to go into USD and lose that financial exposure to Bitcoin, but he also wants to speculate on something using Bitcoin. So like he says, I want to stack sats, not USD. So this is, I woke up and I saw this tweet and I'm like, oh, well, I'm here. I'm a developer on the Discrete Log Contracts project. So why don't we make this happen? This is what discrete log contracts are built for. Speculation directly on the Bitcoin blockchain based on an event that's happening in the real world in the United States presidential election, is one of the most prolific events that's going to happen in the next couple months. So, I thought this is a great way to showcase this technology. So I replied to him, as everything happens in cryptocurrency, it seems to all kind of start on Twitter. So I said, Nicholas, I'll make that market. I'll post the 0.6 BTC as collateral, and you post 0.4 BTC for Trump, and then winner takes all in this DLC. And then I asked if we have a deal, and Nicholas graciously accepted the deal and decided, okay, let's make this happen. Let's use a discrete log contract to settle, to do speculation directly on the Bitcoin blockchain and have that settled trustlessly, or not trustlessly, privately directly on the Bitcoin blockchain. So it's exciting stuff. We had a lot of steps in between, sending these tweets back and forth and actually getting this DLC set up. Nicholas did quite a bit of technical lifting on his end, along with us ironing out some issues, and we're going to cover those throughout the day. But we did manage to actually get this done early this week. Nicholas tweeted out, he said, I've entered a DLC bet with adapter signatures with Chris Stewart on the United States election. So, he links to some code repositories here. We're going to have links to working code at the end of this talk. But it's very exciting to see this in. He is quote tweeting a critical component of the discrete log contract system. So how discrete log contracts work is, you have two parties that want to speculate on something, like, me and Nicholas in the United States election in this case. But that isn't the end of the end of the equation. You need to find a third party that's willing to attest to the outcome of the event. It's very important to remember that with discrete log contracts, that you aren't solving the oracle problem, which is, trustless oracles. You are just minimizing the ways that you're adding accountability and privacy to this oracle problem is probably the best way to put it. So we're excited on developing this oracle technology as we iterate on the discrete log contract spec, but we were able to find an oracle. In this case, the outcome observer is the Twitter handle, and he's willing to attest on November 3rd, who's going to win this election. There's 3 outcomes here. The outcomes can be, he signs a message called Republican win, in the case that the Republicans win the presidential election. They can sign the message Democrat win in the case that the Democrats win the election, which would mean I win 1 Bitcoin. And then he can also sign the case other in case God knows what happens. It's 2020, and it's always good to put caveats in these things. So what happens in the other case is that we're each refunded our collateral. So I would receive my 0.6 Bitcoin back, and Nicholas would receive his 0.4 Bitcoin back in the case that the message other is signed. So there's also one final carve out in this discrete log contract. There's what we call a refund transaction too. And this is for the case of the oracle disappearing. So let's say, something terrible happens to the outcome observer and they're no longer able to broadcast the message. Let's say they lose their private key, for an example. If that's the case, after 6 months from the contract entering into the contract, you can go back, broadcast this refund transaction, everybody gets their money back as well. So there's 4 different outcomes here, depending on the actions of the outcome observer. So let's just give a high level of what we're going to cover in this talk. We're going to do a refresher on DLCs, the technical kind of nuts and bolts of what's going on. We're going to talk about our experience of creating a DLC client. We have a lot of things we've learned along the way in terms of Bitcoin development, writing a new protocol, lessons learned, the standardization process, implementations, next steps, what we're going to be doing in the future here with these discrete log contracts. And then we're at the very end, we're actually going to demonstrate what it is like to set up a discrete log contract between me and Ben. We're going to also speculate on the outcome of this United States presidential election. And we're going to be doing 1 millibitcoin for this DLC that we're going to enter into live on this chat. And fingers crossed that everything goes according to plan. So I'm going to kick it over to Ben here, and he's going to give us a refresher on DLCs. So Ben, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So what DLCs are is, well, they were first originally proposed by Taj Dryja from the MIT DCI in 2017. And from the white paper, he said, discrete log contracts are a system which addresses the scalability and privacy concerns and seeks to minimize trust required in the oracle that provides the external data. So so basically what DLCs are they are Bitcoin oracle contracts. And like Chris stated earlier, they are a lot more scalable and a lot more private for an oracle contract, because in the past you would either need to do something where you're publishing your entire contract on chain, or you need to do something where the oracle will know exactly which transaction is being used for this contract. But now with the DLCs, it kind of flips that, and the oracle is only going to be signing like in this case, Republican win, Democrat win, or other, and the oracle won't know which transaction is actually using the DLC or anything like that, or who's participating. So the first DLC on Mainnet was done by Blockstream in April of 2019, but this is not as nice as it can be done today. For one, they had to do a lot of manual setup for this, writing their own script pub keys and manually tweaking stuff like that and doing their signatures. Versus today, we've built like a library around this, so we could just hit like one button to do execute and not need to waste a bunch of stuff on that. And it used an older design of DLCs. Previously, there was like a penalty mechanism that would happen where instead of using adapter signatures to make your transaction contingent on this Oracle SIG, we changed out pub keys to be contingent on this Oracle SIG. So we needed a way to prevent people from broadcasting wrong transactions. So it was long. It'd take more transactions. It had a bigger fingerprint that was more identifiable, and had a penalty mechanism. Where now, since we've moved to this adapter sig redesign, now it's a lot more private. It's smaller, so it's more scalable, cheaper fees, and it's just all around better since there's no like screwery that can happen. If you want to go to the next slide. So another thing with DLCs, as you can probably tell, they can be used today on Bitcoin. We're going to do one today, and since it's just based off like tweaking signatures for the most part. It can be done on basically any other blockchain. So if you want to do it on Liquid, if you want to do it on Litecoin, if you want to do it on Tron, what have you, it's possible. And so for the matching for like finding your counterparty in this bet, this is still a problem being worked on, and we know there's lots of solutions out there. We just need to kind of develop them and see which the market likes best. But since today it's done through Twitter or through coworkers, but generally we think the way it'll be done is through like traditional exchanges, or maybe like an OTC desk, maybe like a decentralized exchange, or kind of like what we're doing today, like peer-to-peer or IRC or Twitter. And at the end of this is going to settle directly back onto the Bitcoin chain, and we don't need to use some like third party or anything like that to like get our funds back. It's just going to go right onto our chain back into our own wallet.
Yeah. So, like talking about, what does it take to execute a mainnet DLC? And, this is something we want to highlight up front is you need to be reckless. I mean, with any sorts of new technology, we're all kind of pioneers in this regard. If you're watching this talk, new technology excites us. There, of course, is risks associated with new technology. There's bugs, there's whatever can pop up and cause issues. So there's always that caveat to note with any new Bitcoin or blockchain technology. The other thing is what Ben was just talking about is you need to find a counterparty to take the other side of the bet. And once you've managed to find that person, you also need to find an Oracle that's willing to attest to the event. One of the advantages of DLCs is that the Oracle doesn't need to interact during the setup process between you and your counterparty. So the Oracle just has to exist. It has to have published some information. It could have done it yesterday. It could have done it a year ago. It could have done it 10 years ago, depending on what the thing is that you're speculating on. But once the Oracle publishes that information, you only need the Oracle to publish the signature after the event occurs. So in the case of the election, we need them to publish the signature after the race is determined. And then we also need to have them be willing to attest to the event. And this is what the outcome observer on Twitter has done. And then, of course, you need the software to actually run this stuff and understand DLCs and understand how to settle them at the end of the day and get access to the Oracle's information. And this is kind of what we're working on. AssuredBits is this this wallet software to be able to interactively construct discrete log contracts once you've found the person that you want to speculate with. So Ben, I'm going to kick it back over to you on the learning experiences that we've had from creating these compatible clients. Gives you a much more respect for the Lightning developers after going through this process, right, Ben?
Oh, for sure. Doing it yourself it seems easy, and then you try to be compatible with someone else, and you find every error you've made and all the vulnerabilities as well, which is fun. So, well, first off, we should start out, why do you want a compatible client? Which, I mean, it has very obvious benefits where having multiple clients will, these will probably be coded in different languages and be using like different pieces of software. So you should be able to find different like bugs in them, and still find a compatible client that works together. And then it gives users more optionality, so they can, if I want to use, like for us, we'll be using the Bitcoin S wallet, but if you want to use your BTC Pay server, it'd be nice if we could do that without having to migrate funds to different wallets. So that's really the benefit of doing this. And through creating compatible clients, it allows us to make sure that our spec for these DLCs are like explicit and define exactly what we want to do. Something that we found when doing this was that the fee specification was hard to do and not explicit enough. So now we're going to end up beefing that up and making it more easier to implement for developers. And just having more people implement the thing just ends up putting more eyes on the specification. Nicholas might have not ever looked at the DLC spec if he hadn't implemented it, but since he has, he's filed issues and pull requests onto the specification, so now we're all going to be better for it. And this allows us to find out where we aren't following the spec. Like in our client, we found a couple bugs where we thought we were following it correctly, but it turns out we weren't. And since Nicholas had implemented that differently than us, we were able to find the differences.
Next slide, Ben.
Yep. So yeah, obviously you'll run into problems when creating compatible clients. It is hard to do. We need very explicit and precise things to be exactly the same. So what like as with Bitcoin, you're going to be signing transactions, and when you create these signatures, um, the transaction you're signing needs to be exactly the same. If you have like a 1 Satoshi difference on an output, the hash that you sign will be completely different, and you'll give each other invalid signatures. So this causes a lot of problems for you if you're not being very explicit. And also when you're negotiating like these DLCs or anything really, even like a Lightning channel, you need to be able to parse and correctly read all these messages that you're sending back and forth to negotiate these. And there's like 2 ways to do this too. Like first you need to get the structure for the entire message correct, and then the actual data in this message. Like a signature could be written out multiple ways, so you need to make sure that you're transmitting that in the same way and reading it correctly for everyone. And but luckily, uh, if you do have incompatibilities with these clients, most likely your setup should just fail, so you're not going to end up putting funds at risk. You'll most likely just not be able to ever send funds. So luckily we haven't burned any mainnet Bitcoin, but um, here's hoping we don't find something where we did, but should be good.
And Ben, I think
Yeah. So we have made some mistakes along the way, and we've learned a lot, and we wanted to talk about that, and hopefully either provide some wisdom or just share what it's like to be developing like this. So like we kind of said earlier, fee calculations are hard. If you're doing if you tell me like 1 sat per byte, we could have rounding errors. We could be estimating sizes of signatures wrong. We could be estimating size of inputs or outputs wrong. There's lots of places where things can go wrong, and it's hard to do. So for our initial implementation, we actually just ended up hard coding a fee value into or I think it was actually a transaction value, so it like implicitly the fee value. So we could be compatible just to get these like initial things going. That's obviously not going to be permanent. We're gonna in the specification. This isn't part of it at all. We're just trying to get an initial client out that works, and just to show that we can do it. And we need to make sure we verify everything that we're getting. So, when you get a signature, you should make sure that that signature is valid. When actually we first did this, we found out that the Bitcoin S client wasn't verifying signatures, the opposing party signatures in some cases. So, so luckily since doing this, we found that vulnerability and we're able to patch it. And well, during this whole thing, specs that we've been basing this whole thing on have changed a bunch. The DLC messaging spec recently, like maybe a day before Chris and Nick's DLC was executed, we changed the entire messaging specification to use different formatting and different message types. And then another important thing is the Oracle is using BIP340 to sign messages, and that had to change as well. That was completely out of our control. So these are all things that like are hard to deal with, but since it is very early technology, they're things you always have to deal with. But as things get more mature and progress, these won't be problems in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, just to reiterate what Ben's saying there about, some of the changes are self-induced, and that's on us. But like Ben said, like when you have changes happen underneath of you on the code that you're depending on, that makes it very hard as like an application developer to make sure that you're compatible with different clients. Like now we have this debate going on in the DLC spec land of like, oh, what version of BIP 340 are we using? And are you using this one or are you using that one? Because things are changing. And that's fine because, we're early adopters of the BIP 340 stuff, and it's not deployed as a consensus rule in Bitcoin yet. But, it goes again to say that, once you say you're going to put software out and support it, you should support it for the long term. So people building up on top of your protocol can, make guarantees to their users of, what's possible. So, this is another kind of tip of the hat to, the kind of conservatism that goes on in the Bitcoin development land. It makes it easier for people like us once something is incorporated into the system. So more about the standardization process. First, the thing I want to highlight to everybody here is DLCs are an open standard that anybody can contribute to. We have in the cryptocurrency community in general, but especially with Bitcoin, that there's this great collaborative process of open source contributors from all over the world, working together to specify how something should work. This was set at first by the Bitcoin improvement proposals or BIPs in the Bitcoin protocol. The Lightning Network made an extremely wise decision in my point of view for working together as 3 teams to come up with the Bolt standard. So we have a Lightning network that is compatible with each other. So you can run LND or C Lightning or Eclair, and everybody can still communicate with each other and transact with each other. And having these specifications, goes a long way into adoption, in my opinion. So we've taken the same exact process for building out the Discreet Log Contracts spec. We have recently just merged our first, we're calling it 0.1 of the transaction specification and basic messaging stuff. So, we're trying to solidify exactly what a transaction looks like at the byte level for discrete log contracts. And again, solidifying that process to make sure it doesn't change so everybody can start building software around DLCs rather than directly in the protocol itself. And going back to this software kind of conservatism, that's what we also want to try and do with DLC stuff. So, and I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't mention all of the amazing teams and individuals that have contributed to either DLC clients or the DLC specification, specifically Crypto Garage, Digital Garage, Atomic Loans, us, and then there's a bunch of independent contributors as well that have joined in this process. We do a specification meeting about once a month. Everybody has been super helpful, super eager, very collaborative. We do have some time zone differences, which does make it difficult at some points, but it truly is a global effort here for getting this discrete log contract spec done. And it's been super encouraging along the way to see the amount of input that we're getting. But again, just to highlight this one more time, if you're interested in reading about these specifications or how discrete log contracts work at a very technical level, check out this GitHub repo and these GitHub URLs. That's where all the action's happening right now. So, to talk about concrete implementations, these are the ones that we know about for discrete log contracts. We've been working on this for Bitcoin S for a while now. We're one of the, we are ones that are producing test vectors for other implementations to try and be compatible with. Our colleague at Surebits, Nadav Cohen, is in the process of that right now. So that makes it easier for everybody else to make sure they speak the same language, quote unquote, as we do, or speak the same protocol. Throughout this process of us setting up this election pit, you got to give credit where credit's due. Nicolas Dorier has just been absolutely fantastic in this process. he went from having no understanding of DLCs really and no code written to having a client that he could piece together to get to enter into this DLC spec or this DLC bet with us and be compatible with the spec. So, I know Nicholas has got some plans for NDLC, kind of in the wider ecosystem of the BTC Pay server products that he's talked about. So, I'm excited to see what he does over there. You can find his code if you're a C# person here, github.com, dgarage/NDLC. And Nicholas has just been, again, phenomenal in contributing to the spec, opening issues, pointing out flaws where we had flaws, and also, contributing concrete code himself. So hats off to Nicholas. Other folks that are working on implementations, we have a Rust DLC implementation that the Crypto Garage folks are working on. They've been working away at this for a while now, trying to be fully spec compliant. They also have a P2P derivatives app that they released a month or two ago that has a much better UX than what we're about to show you guys in terms of entering into a DLC. So right now, we still have work to do on the specification. Oracles are a very interesting topic that people are talking about right now. What's the best way for people to find information related to oracles? How do you verify the authenticity of oracles? DLCs also have a built-in penalty mechanism where you can actually have oracles stake funds. So let's say the outcome observer wanted to put some skin in the game, and he's like, I'll put 1 Bitcoin of collateral up on the Bitcoin blockchain. And due to the way DLCs are structured and some cryptography magic, if the outcome observer was to publish 2 conflicting results, you could actually steal those funds from the outcome observer, steal those funds that they have publicly staked on the blockchain. So if they were to publish a message that said the Democrats win, along with a message saying that the Republicans win, they are about not being consistent on the message that they're saying. And you can actually use those 2 conflicting messages to take funds from the Oracle if they've decided to opt into this sort of staking mechanism that's built into DLCs. So that's something we're also looking at on the Oracle side of things. UX, this is going to be self-explanatory when you guys see our demo. The UX side of things is very rough, and it's definitely engineer ready, I think is the term I like to use when it comes to things like this, rather than end user ready. But I mean, there are teams like out there, working on the UX problem, and I've seen some stuff and it looks pretty sweet. I'm not gonna lie. So point number 4 here, market makers and liquidity pools. This gets into the market side of things rather than the kind of technical low-level engineering side of things. Is like, how do you get a vibrant ecosystem of DLCs being traded back and forth where you can go and find a counterparty that will enter into a discrete log contract with you? In the case of Nicholas, I found him on Twitter and I just happened to see his tweet, but that's not really a way to scale this out to trading billions of dollars a day or something like that. So there's got to be a lot of thoughts put into how do we source this liquidity, and also we need to figure out some sort of way to standardize contracts. So contracts that are popular in terms of financial speculation, we need a way to promote those and make sure people are kind of geared towards those. So if you're like a centralized exchange, you kind of get to pick the products that are traded on your platform, and you can funnel people towards your quarterly Bitcoin futures contracts or whatever. You don't offer like a daily futures contract, or I don't know, like a futures contract every 4 hours or something like that. You have set contracts that you try and funnel everybody towards to make sure there's enough liquidity for everybody to trade. So that needs to be thought through on the DLC side of things as well. And point number 5, the DLC stuff from the get-go has been designed in mind for lifting it up into the Lightning Network. So the demo that we're about to take you guys through is just going to be a simple on-chain DLC. It's there's no fanciness with layer 2 stuff there. It's just going to be me and Ben entering into a contract directly on the Bitcoin blockchain. We, have been writing about how to do Lightning DLCs on our blog at surebits.com/blog for a while now, and that's where we want to get all this technology. We want to put it on Lightning. We want to, take advantage of the speed and privacy guarantees that Lightning offers. That makes it much more of a seamless user experience. So that's something that we're going to be looking at in the future. We're already starting to do the groundwork behind the scenes at SureBits anyway for this. So, stay tuned. And then finally, point number 6, I got off the phone with the RGB folks earlier today and talking about, how, flexible of a technology DLCs are. You can actually use DLCs with other technologies such as RGB and, speculate based on, or do speculative bets based on RGB assets. So, perhaps you can speculate on, what the price of Tether is going to be, or, how many sats one Tether is worth in the future. So, we're also looking into that. Like, again, DLCs are extremely flexible in this regard that allow you to use other Bitcoin technologies in conjunction with DLCs. Ben, am I missing any points here that we wanted to touch on?
I think you're good. I just Christian messages saying we need to talk up a little though. So.
Oh, are we a little quiet? Okay, cool. I will try and speak up then. Sorry guys for being quiet. But yeah, so I guess here is the main event. We're gonna set up a DLC. So here's what me and Ben are gonna do. We're gonna replicate the bet that me and Nicholas did, except 1/100th of the total amount. So we're gonna do it for 1,000,000 sats is what this bet's gonna be for. The terms of the contract are I'm gonna post 600,000 sats in collateral, and Ben's gonna post 400,000 sats in collateral. There's some, we're going to use the exact same oracle that me and Nicholas used. That's the outcome observer on Twitter. And we're going to just take you through of how, what it looks like to set up one of these processes. Ben, am I missing any details here, or are we ready to jump right into it?
I think we're ready to jump in. Just keep in mind, UX is very, very work in progress.
Yeah, you guys.
Eventually, will be a lot prettier.
Yeah, you guys can poke fun at us. You can clearly tell that we're engineers and not UX designers.
Yeah. Go contribute to Bitcoin design if you want to make this better.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. We've been talking with the Bitcoin design folks. Square Crypto is standing up this new project of, what's the best way to use Bitcoin applications. And, we're extremely excited to bring over some of that knowledge into the Discreet Log Contract land to, make the UX of this better. So, okay, here's our little wallet app. This is the Bitcoin S wallet. You can see my balance is 0.44 Bitcoin as we stand here. And we have little tabs up at the top here. We're going to go to the DLC tab. So this is the one that we will use to enter into a DLC. So intuitively, and I say that sarcastically, you got to go down to the bottom right-hand corner here and enter in the number of outcomes that the DLC can result in. So if we go and look over at our friendly Oracle on Twitter, he actually tells us right in the tweet, what are the 3 outcomes are for this DLC. So he says here, he will sign the SHA-256 hash of Republican win or Democrat win or other. So these are the 3 outcomes that we need to put in this dialog box. So I'm going to copy it over and make sure I get all of the letters. Very important that you do that. And we're going to paste in the first one, which is Republicans win. And in this outcome of Republicans winning, I will receive 0 Satoshis. So Ben will receive the entire 1,000,000 Satoshis. So I'm going to put 0. Oh, that's a O. Put 0 in the input box. So case number 1 covered. Let's go get the second one. So the second message that he can sign is Democrat win. So let's copy that. Go back over here. And then now I'm going to enter in the case of how much money I'm going to win if the Democrats win. So I'm going to win 1 million Satoshi. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Got to be very careful about counting my zeros. And then finally, this is the final case. He says he will also publish a message signed to other in the case that, God forbid something happens. He's pretty funny down here in one of these tweets. He says, to be clear, in the event that there is a nuclear war that wipes out all life on Earth before the election is decided, I have prepared a satellite that will orbit the barren, lifeless remains of our planet and broadcast the signatures of other for all eternity. So I feel totally confident in that. I'm sure it will happen. So that's the clause for other, I guess.
It's a resourceful owl.
He is a very resourceful owl. It might be Elon Musk. I don't know. So, okay, in the case of other, I want to be refunded my original collateral that I'm going to post. So I am going to post 600,000 Satoshis of collateral. So, okay, we are good. Let's press the OK button. Okay. Oops, where is my wallet app? Okay, so we get a bunch of information dumped over here. And, again, going to how we're excellent UI, UX people. This is, I'm sure, totally readable for everybody on this live stream. Not difficult to understand at all. Just really quickly, the most important stuff is the things down here. It's the hashes that correspond to the three cases. So the Republican win represents this hash. The Democrat win represents this hash. The other case is this hash. And that's all you really need to know at this moment. So the next step that we're going to do, we've just entered in some Oracle information. The next thing we're going to do is start negotiating specific contract details with Ben. So we're going to click we're going to offer a DLC or offer a discrete log contract to our counterparty. So we want to create that offer. So what I'm going to go through here is enter in a bunch of information, and then we're going to send this message over to Ben so he can accept the offer. So let's click offer. So we've got the contract info pre-populated. So now in the collateral field, we need to enter in the amount of collateral that I'm going to contribute. 600,000 Satoshis. Okay, lock time. This doesn't matter for this demo, so we're going to skip it. The more important thing, though, is the refund lock time. So this, again, is for the case where the outcome observer just drops off the face of the earth and maybe their satellite isn't working like he claims. So maybe we can't count on the other message to actually be broadcast. So I don't trust his satellite, I guess. So I will definitely enter in a lock time or refund lock time, excuse me. So the refund lock time is going to be in approximately 6 months from now. It's going to occur at block number 674106. So, before this, we just did a calculation. What's roughly 6 months from now? So we'll be refunded our money in 6 months if nothing happens.
Yeah. And that's important because if we had that at, like, say 0, then I could see, like, oh, in the polls, Biden's about to win. So I could just broadcast that refund transaction like the day before, and then thus getting my money back and not end up losing the contract. But since we set the lock time on that transaction, now that transaction is only valid after that block height. So now Chris should be safe, or I should be safe.
Yes, exactly. Okay, there's a little bit more Oracle information that we need to enter. This is going to be more Oracle information that's specific to this contract. So there's this concept of the Oracle nonce, and then the Oracle's public key. I'm going to gloss over of what these are technically. Just know that this is, some math magic behind the scenes that you need to make sure you get right to make sure that you can use the Oracle signatures when they publish the event. So coming back over here to the outcome observer, he specifies the nonce right here in his tweet. So we're going to copy that and bring that over to the nonce field. And we're going to go and get his public key, which is in his Twitter bio. So he says, this is my BIP340 public key that I'm using for committing to different outcomes. So, let's copy that as well. So we're going to dump that in this field. And then finally, we need to have a fee rate for the transactions that we're going to broadcast. So I guess Ben, is 10 Satoshis fine?
Let me check
Okay.
the mempool real quick, just in case.
Okay. So you need to make sure you pay enough in fees so
yeah.
transactions get confirmed. Just the normal stuff here, nothing
10 will
fancy.
10 will be fine.
Okay, let's enter in 10. Okay, let's press the OK button. So this is all of our contract information. We're going to actually generate a DLC offer to send to our counterparty. Okay, great. So we get this JSON dumped into the text box. Again, thank you so much for admiration of my UX skills here. So this is just a synopsis of kind of all the information that we just inputted. But the important thing is this information needs to get relayed to your counterparty. So what I'm going to do here is send all this information over to Ben. He's going to take this information and put it in his Bitcoin S wallet and accept the contract. So Ben, I know your screen's not shared, but maybe you can at least walk through what needs to happen here.
Yeah, if you see on Chris's screen, he has like an accept button at the top. I'm just basically, Chris, if you want to press that, it just has a DLC offer button. So I'm just going to paste in exactly what he sent me into there, and then my wallet will handle the rest, and it'll like put in all the information he gave me, and then spit out like my inputs for this DLC, as well as register in my wallet that we're now doing this DLC. Let me go ahead and do that. And then it gave me a giant JSON that I will send back to Chris. And this has my inputs that I'm using, and it also is sending some adapter signatures for Chris. So he can, on the election day or whatever happens, once he gets the Oracle signature, he can then use my adapter sigs to create a valid transaction later on.
Okay, so yeah, like Ben said, he sent me the accept message, and the next step is signing, like passing signatures to actually create this transaction. So I'm going to take this accept message, I'm going to paste it in here. We're going to click OK, and we're going to see just a bunch of digital signatures. And each of these signatures, if you look very carefully, these signatures correspond to one of these events. So you see there's 3 of them, that corresponds to the 3 outcomes. You also have the refund signature down here, stuff that you would just expect for the UX flow that we just went through. So yeah. I'm going to, what was that, Ben?
Oh, and you also have a signature for your funding input. So once you give me this, I'm now able to broadcast the funding transaction and actually get this on chain.
Yeah, so a bunch of low-level technical stuff, and again, this is where we're at in implementation. There's a lot of this that can be abstracted away. We just aren't there yet in terms of the engineering man hours.
If you like a look into the future would be like all these messages that we're copying back and forth would actually just be like sent over the internet automatically, like between your 2 wallets, like opening up like a Tor circuit between each other or something. So we don't need to actually do this manual process that we are doing now.
Yeah. So I sent the message over to Ben, and Ben, what's the next step?
I hit the add DLC or add SIGs button, which is just the same as before, but I input all of his signatures, and then that spit out spit out an event ID for me. And with that, I can hit the get funding transaction button, and with that event ID, I put that in there, and I can then broadcast it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now.
Moment of truth, guys.
Yeah.
So to be clear, the entire negotiation is done. Ben just needs to broadcast the transaction. And once that transaction is confirmed, we have entered into a DLC on the mainnet Bitcoin network.
Yep. I think I just broadcasted it.
Hopefully we can go dig it up on a Block Explorer, maybe.
That's the plan. I'm gonna.
So when the transaction is going to get confirmed, and that means that once it has sufficient proof of work, it's confirmed. There's no going back out of it. There's only ways that you can exit the contract are, we come back around to that block lock time that we talked about. In about 6 months, we can refund our money, or the Oracle needs to take action and publish a message that is signed, with Republican win, Democrat win, other. And again, in this, just to reiterate this, we're doing a political bet in this case, just because this is what Nicholas wanted to do on Twitter. This really can apply to almost any speculative bet, sports, financial contracts, whatever your brain can dream up.
Yep. I had to little bug. My wallet didn't output the transaction ID. It hid it from me, so I'm restarting it to give it me the transaction ID.
Okay. Well, this is the beauty of new software, right? Is you got to work out the various bugs along the way. But yeah, this hopefully Ben can recover his funding transaction and broadcast it here shortly.
Here we go. All right. I'm going to go and broadcast it, and I'll send you the link to it.
Cool.
All right. Here you go. Sent you a blockstream info link.
Okay. Yay. Unconfirmed, of course, because it just got broadcasted. But here's our DLC transaction. I guess we've blown away our privacy at this point, so everybody can go and follow this on your favorite block explorer, and either laugh at me or laugh at Ben, depending on the outcome of the election. If anybody needs to be mailed Joe Biden apparel, find me on Twitter. I'll send you a campaign sign or something. I do have, I guess, a non-trivial amount of money riding on him at this point. So, I guess maybe, Ben, was there something you wanted to add there?
I don't know if you want to go through like some of the details on this, since we still have some time, where like you can see the first output here is the address is slightly longer than the other two. That's because that's the pay to witness script hash one. So that's our multi-sig contract that has our, that's the output that will be spent once we execute our DLC. And those other two outputs are just me and Chris's change. So, we don't want to spend all our money on fees, so we just get it back. And yeah, and you can see like up there as well, like the lock time, that is 0. So like that's what we put originally, since we don't care when this transaction is confirmed. So we just gave it a lock time of 0. Yeah.
So and then again, we'll spend these outputs with some fancy transactions. And I mean, just to reiterate on our design process with DLCs, we initially started with these complicated penalty schemes, and one of the, I guess along the way we figured out this adapter signature scheme. Specifically, Lloyd Fournier did a bunch of amazing work on making this a reality, along with Jonas Nick over at Blockstream, and made the entire protocol so much simpler. It's what I like to call correct by construction now, rather than kind of like after the fact penalizing people, similar to what Lightning does. And every protocol is a product of the time that it was created in, and for Lightning, this is kind of was the best available thing at that time. And as we kind of all figure out technology in the Bitcoin ecosystem, I think we're going to see a lot of these like layer 2, layer 3, whatever protocols you want to call them, get easier to reason about.
And if you do one of these and you're gonna lose a bunch of sats, maybe what you can do is go to earn carat, and if you enter the code DLC20, they'll give you 2100 sats. So that way, at least you won't lose all your money.
you get at least 2100 sats out of it, and maybe a good story, and you can yell at us on Twitter or something.
There you go.
Okay, let's go back to the slides here. So I guess this is our wrap-up slide. Oh, that's not our wrap-up slide. This is our wrap-up slide. So thank you first off, for listening to us, guys. We're super excited about this technology, and I sent out a tweet a couple days ago. This is kind of controversial in the Bitcoin space. I think is like using the same marketing stuff that they do on other coins, but I don't believe we need to concede this like DeFi territory to Ethereum and let them rule the roost over there. We should be working on this stuff too because people are using it, and in my opinion, Bitcoin is set up much better in the long term to really make these applications sustainable. So, part of this is why we're doing this work is to, bring this capability over to Bitcoin. It doesn't have to be parasitic on the underlying blockchain. You can use technology smartly to make this realistic. I just, we again want to hammer that point home. You can follow us on Twitter, Ben the Carman, Chris_Stewart_5. If you're technically minded or find this stuff interesting, please go read the specification repo and contribute. Again, open standard, anybody can participate in it. And, we don't claim to have a monopoly on ideas or anything like that. Actually, it's very funny along this entire specification process. It seems like there's people that are smarter than us that keep on coming over to the project and making it substantially better. So, that's why I guess I'm showing for contributors so much. And then, if you want to figure out how our software works, go to bitcoins.org, the DLC section, or we have, Ben and Nadav specifically have written a ton about discrete log contracts on our blog. Ben, was there anything else that I need to touch on?
The next slide, we have a bunch of links to two Slack groups. One of them is our own SharedBit Slack that we talk about DLCs and Bitcoin S stuff. And then there's the LDK Slack, which also is a DLC channel. That's kind of more of the DLC spec talk happens, and it's a good place to join it if you just want to ask questions or if you want to come contribute and don't know where to start. Great place to come join and hang out. Or you could, if you don't want to join Slack, just file an issue on GitHub and we'll answer questions there as well.
Yeah, and I guess wait. I realize we haven't talked about this yet, but we should get an IRC channel or a Telegram channel going as well. Which
it's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, that would
TM.
be soon. TM, yes, exactly. But yeah, I think that's all we have for you guys. Thank you so much for the time, and we're looking forward to seeing what DLCs can do in the rest of 2020 and in 2021 especially.